This is the GenWhy Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the GenWhy Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of the GenWhy Leaders Podcast. Feels weird saying that. That was the original goal when we started this journey a couple years ago now. But alongside of me, I have Jonathan Hale, who's been along for the ride and just crushed it on social media and building our audience and building our following. Jonathan, what's up, man?
How's it going?
It's going well. Can't believe we made it to 100.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's wild for sure. A lot of time invested. That's for sure. But yeah, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, or if you haven't, rather, just to catch you up to speed. So these last 3 episodes, we are officially closing out the podcast. Unfortunately, it's just not exactly where we need it to be to monetize it, and then kind of broke the golden rule of podcasting. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can go back and listen to episodes 98 and 99. On this episode 100, we'll just kind of walk through some of our successes, kind of walk through our journey of, Jonathan building a successful social media following, and me speaking to the downloads and the podcasting side. And then we'll walk through top episodes and kind of, favorite guests, memories, things like that. So again, can't thank you enough, Jonathan, for being along for the ride and joining me on this journey. And can't thank the listeners enough too. I mean, we wouldn't have done it if we weren't getting any downloads. So we'll get to that in a bit. But Jonathan, anything top of mind for you?
No, as I've said the last couple episodes, really just thank you for bringing me along and letting me participate as a social media professional, and also as a sort of a co-host and fill-in interviewer. It's been a lot of fun.
For sure, man. You did awesome in all aspects. You want to kick us off and kind of walk us through the social media following that you've built over the last couple of years?
Sure. Yeah. So you may hear my dog in the background. He's
that's right. I think everyone's used to it by now after COVID. It's like it's that new normal everyone talked about. For
sure. Yeah. So on social media, LinkedIn, we ended at around 190, 191 followers. Facebook 169, Instagram 123, and then on YouTube 28 subscribers. So great considering where we started, I think.
Which was 0.
Yeah, and I think one of the most exciting things for me was, as I've alluded to in the last couple episodes, seeing the interaction on LinkedIn and seeing people wanting to celebrate their colleagues or their peers. And I think, with Facebook, just sort of the state of the platform, reach is sort of it's hard to come by. So LinkedIn was our bread and butter, and I think again people were really interested in, one, hearing stories, and B, celebrating people they know.
For sure. Well said. Would you say LinkedIn was your favorite one to post to then, just because of the subject matter, one, but two, knowing that we'd probably get more traction, more engagement?
I think so. Which is, interesting, because I don't think any social media manager will tell you LinkedIn is their favorite, their favorite platform. But I think for us, it was the best avenue. And for me, as I've sort of, grown up with social media, I think using I'm a big Twitter guy, but using Facebook less, using LinkedIn quite a bit more.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Good insights. All right. We talk a little bit about episode downloads. So for those that don't know, we use a distribution service called Libsyn. So for those that don't know, distribution software or service is really allows you to post in one spot and then it posts on many other podcasting platforms on your behalf. So essentially, I post every episode to Libsyn. It then takes that episode and disperses it out to the iTunes of the world, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Google Play, whatever they're calling it nowadays, Google Music, whatever it may be, Amazon Music, and all of the other kind of second tier podcasting platforms. So you can find us out there on quite a bit. If you go to GenWhyLeaders.com/listen now, you'll be able to have access to, I think, 4 or 5 of the major platforms. So if you want to catch up on episodes, you are welcome to do it there. And then, of course, since we have done a majority of these over like 90%, probably maybe 80%, over Zoom, that they are indeed video. So therefore, we have YouTube as well. And so those are the 2 platforms. So majority of our downloads came from Libsyn. That totaled 4,722 downloads. And then with YouTube, it was 2,568, which brought us to a total of 7,290 downloads, which is awesome. That's, I guess, about 70 downloads per episode. So not a lot, but I think enough to be encouraging to keep going. I mean, providing value to 70 listeners every time you post is pretty cool. And knowing that 70 people are going to hear every message you put out is flattering. But again, I think it's more so about us providing value to them. Jonathan, any insights or anything surprising from those numbers?
Sure. I think, as you've kind of broken it down, 70 people listening each time, that's quite a few people. And that's, again, getting the message to that many people is exciting. YouTube's always sort of interesting to me, just because I follow so many different, I suppose podcasts, but also like video essayists and things like that. So just seeing the numbers there is kind of exciting. And going back to episode 99, the reluctance to give it up, I feel like there's some opportunity there. But it just kind of it is what it is. But that's an exciting number to me.
For sure. Yeah, I think to YouTube specifically, it's interesting from a marketing standpoint, since we're both in that sector, that I think it speaks to the utility of the platform, because I think people go to it maybe not knowing if they're going to look at the screen the whole time, but also knowing that it's there if they do want to watch, to where it's like, hey, maybe, they can hit play, but still also walk the dog, or if they're washing the dishes at night, they can listen to it, but also peek over once in a while if someone shows a graphic or something funny, whatever it may be. So I think it's, surprising, but I'm starting to understand more and more that not all the views of YouTube are actually eyeballs, right? They could be listens as well, as a podcast would prove. Next up, we're going to go through the top downloaded episodes. We're going to give you the top 10. Jonathan, you want to take us from the top?
Yeah. So right off the top, we've got Walker Diebel.
Yeah. Walker is very interesting. He's, I think I mentioned this on one of the previous episodes, but he's kind of the acquisition entrepreneurship expert, right? So he had wrote a book called Buy Then Build. He has a lab called Acquisition Lab. But the concept of acquisition entrepreneurship was the idea of buying pre-existing businesses rather than trying to start a business from scratch. So very cool concept. He's nationally, if not internationally, known now. So I definitely see why he took the top spot in top downloads.
Next up, we've got Kilee Nickels.
Yeah, Kilee Nickels is the CEO of Nickel and Suede, based here in Kansas City. Got a couple of shops locally. I think they got, one on the West Coast and one in Dallas maybe now. But yeah, she was famous or is famous for starting a line of jewelry, specifically earrings that were more lightweight, I think specifically leather, if I remember correctly from her episode. But very well known. And again, I think just having access to her network, it's not surprising why she's in the second spot.
And the third spot, we've got Nick Topping.
Yeah, Nick's awesome. He's over at Safety Culture. His episode was really cool. I think the draw with his, maybe why it garnered attention is because the title was, I think, Stand Up to Bad Meetings. And so I'm pretty sure this was either, I think this might've been right during COVID or right as COVID was hitting. So it's funny to think about, maybe people were fed up with too many meetings in person and cluttering up their workday with unnecessary meetings. So interesting to see that one on the list.
Yeah. Next up, we've got the GenWhy overview.
Yeah, this was episode 000. So I guess technically we've done 101 episodes, if you think about it. Yeah, pat ourselves on the back for that one. Go the extra mile. But yeah, I think, just for the fact that this has been out there living the longest since it was the very first thing ever published, I think that's helped. But then also anyone who comes to our website or LinkedIn who is interested, that hopefully they see that if they scroll to the bottom and listen and move on.
Next up, we've got Lisa Smith.
Yeah, I actually had met Lisa through a previous job, but she had a company called Dynamize, I believe is the correct way to pronounce it. But she developed a tool and had a business off of it. So she was both an inventor and an entrepreneur. And so her episode caught a lot of traction on YouTube. I think of just a lot of organic reach. Not sure exactly how it caught on so much, but I think she's very plugged into her networks and her community. So yeah, very cool episode 31 for anyone who's interested in going to hear her success story.
So after her, we've got Kristin Hems.
Yeah, that's episode 41 for anyone interested in listening. But that episode was about how to go back to in-person events and meetings after COVID. So I think this was probably about a year ago now, maybe a little longer. But yeah, great episode, great insights as far as, what to do when we get back there and if it'll ever get 100% back to it. Right. But yeah, cool episode for sure.
Yeah. And then we have Andrew Potter.
Yeah. Andrew's an awesome guy. He former military, and he's got a couple rock climbing gyms here in Kansas City. Just a really stand-up guy, and seems like he built his business on people and believing in people and hiring based on character. And yeah, I think his episode goes a long way just as far as believing in people and always putting people first in your business.
Yeah. Then we have Harry Campbell.
Yeah. Harry Campbell's a very well-known person here in Kansas City, but also nationally. He used to be executive at Sprint, and I think he was CEO of at Drury Vision. And so, yeah, just really well-known person, business professional in the space here in Kansas City. But then he's also an author. He's got 3 books now in his series. I think we touch on all of those, but in his episode 33, I think we basically outline his book, he's got the Get Real series, and I don't want to mess it up here. So I'm going to do a quick peek back at episode 33 as I scroll down here. Yeah, Get Real Mindset was the name of that book that we outlined in that episode. But great series of books, great guy. Definitely would encourage people to check him out here in Kansas City and also nationally if you're listening.
Yeah, and after Harry, we've got Brooks Mosier.
Yeah, Brooks Mosier is actually a good friend. I've known him, for many years, probably since middle school or definitely high school for sure. Played football together in high school, but I've really just kept tabs on his career, and he's done incredibly well in the real estate space. And his episode's 26. He's got a huge network in the real estate space. And again, he was one of the few people that tagged his episode from the GenWhy Leaders podcast on his LinkedIn profile. So I think that really helped up his numbers in terms of total downloads, and maybe in addition to his strength of network, I think that's maybe why he wound up in the top 10 as well.
And then finally, we have Megan Snow.
Yeah. Megan is also a friend. I think you know Megan from UCM and being in PR classes and communication classes, but she had a really cool concept of the 5K wedding run, excuse me. And so that was episode 15, very early on in the podcast. But yeah, very cool story, and deep dive into, what gave her the idea and her journey with it. And then she even talks about selling it, which was kind of the end result. So very unique story, and I would definitely encourage people to go check out episode 15 as well. I think that closes out the top 10 though. Jonathan, what comes to mind, or who comes to mind maybe when you think of some favorite episodes, favorite guests, favorite quotes, whatever that may be?
Sure. Yeah. I think, I think for me, having the opportunity to interview was exciting. Getting an opportunity to talk to Allison Hopp at Ministry of Supply was great, just because I'm a huge Ministry of Supply fan and customer. And I think in that same vein, I found John Shanahan looking for reviews of Ministry of Supply, so I really enjoyed speaking to him. He's of course a YouTuber, the Cavalier, and then talking to Jeff Evans, Mean Mule. Really, just talking about my own interviews because that's who I am. No, talking to Jeff Evans.
Selfish, Jonathan.
Yes. I appreciate the opportunity to get to do that. I wish I could have done more of those. But for me, that meant a lot to sort of flex that muscle. So
for sure, a lot of cool stories. I like Mean Mule Jeff Evans, right? Is that what we said? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember he has a very punchy intro, and not even intro, like I guess we call it brand story, maybe is the right way to phrase it. But it was just very punchy, and I could remember just like feeling the excitement the way he told the story, as far as like how Mean Mule once was, and kind of reviving it through his family history and all that. Is super cool story. I liked his a lot too.
I was lucky enough to sit in on Grant Russell's interview, which was fun because I think that was the first one I actually got to sit in on. But I remember his quote about not, if you're getting an email from someone you don't want to talk to, that's sort of a headache. And I think it's sort of a fun thing to say, but at the same time, what it really meant is being free to create your own business, create your own opportunities, and really control your own destiny in that sense. So that's why I thought that was, I don't remember the quote exactly, but I remember thinking that is awesome. That's a crazy cool sentiment.
Yeah. For those interested, that's episode 30. For me, I think I had a couple favorite episodes. One, I think the episode with Andy and Lucy Rieger here at J. Rieger & Co., the local distillery. I think it was episode 18, just double checking real quick. Yeah, episode 18. Just in general, I mean, great, incredible story. Similar to Mean Mule, I guess, in terms of like reviving a family brand. In especially in the alcohol space, but yeah, just a really cool customer base and brand that they built. Their episode specifically was talking about building a following without spending without spending a dime of advertising dollars, a $0 ad budget. And so I just think that's really cool in today's era, as far as how crowded the digital space is, to build as successful brand as they have. I mean, if you go down to their new distillery in the East Bottoms, where the Electric Park district used to be, I mean, it's just a magnificent building that they have, and it's just so cool to walk through and see the history. And it feels like part museum almost, and then of course part distillery too. So really cool, and just all around great people with a great story. Selfishly, I think the topic of acquisition entrepreneurship is really cool. a couple episodes on that again. The most recent one being just here a few episodes ago with Daniel Lee. I think it was 97, I guess. And then Walker Diebel and Dave Schwab earlier on in the podcast episodes. But I just think it's such a cool topic. Walker talks about this in his episode, but something like 40% of the entire U.S. economy is dependent on baby boomer owned businesses. So it's crazy to think that those businesses have to change hands, whether it be through a family member or just some random person who wants to buy their business. But I think it's a really huge opportunity for young and hungry, to use kind of a buzzword or slang or lame term. But yeah, young and hungry people who are interested in entrepreneurship, but also don't want the pain points of starting a business from zero and scaling everything up and getting past that statistic of 10 years to where most, like what is it, 90% of businesses fail within 10 years. So I think it's such a cool opportunity for young people to pursue something like that. So definitely go check out those episodes. Any specific quotes besides Grant's really stand out to you in terms of like what people said and or anything, like just way certain episodes made you feel, anything like that?
On the acquisition entrepreneurship with Daniel, I thought what he said about finding a business, he doesn't want to just find a business. He wants to find something sustainable.
Yeah.
I thought that was enlightening, and obviously something that has to be considered when you go into acquiring a business, but also, that acquiring future businesses has to be something sort of adjacent or related to what you're doing. So you're really sort of building, for lack of a better term, a conglomerate of businesses. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Tons and tons of knowledge in those episodes.
Yeah. I think, there was an episode, and forgive me, forget the guest's name, but he'd started a marketing firm with his sister.
Yeah, that was
sort of a
Sam Noel of Treasure Advertising, I believe, is who you're referring to.
Yes, and I thought it was so cool to see someone who was a little bit younger than us really having sort of a firm grasp on the type of business that they'd started, and just sort of having a fruitful partnership in that sense. I thought that was really cool. For sure.
Yeah, tons and tons of great stories. I feel like I could sit here all day and just go one by one and reminisce a little bit. But yeah, there was in addition to you, Jonathan, and my wife, Cassie, there was just a core group of people that were really encouraging that wound up on the podcast. And a couple of them were episode 1 with friend Brent Vogel. His episode was sacrificing success for significance. And he's got a really cool story of just foregoing what was a very successful athletic career and then a coaching career to really follow his wife and encourage her in her career path as well. So great story, more on the personal side outside of professional, but I think more and more the people we talk to, I think most people nowadays see professional and personal life as one thing, right? And then Logan Freeman was another person who was really encouraging. Such a cool story from being drafted in the NFL to transitioning to real estate profession. One, I think, quote that he used was the only way to overcome fear is to step right back into it, which I thought was super cool and one I'll always take away. And then Ryan Bennett, episode 3, talked about habits and just making things more habitual in your life. And that if you want to go after big goals, you have to break them down to bite-sized chunks and digest them that way on a daily basis. And then good buddy Matt Honeycutt, who also went to UCM with us, episode 5, we just talked about being really intentional with your time, whether that be professionally or personally, just kind of putting blinders on, being able to focus and block out the noise, which I think is really hard to do nowadays. But yeah, I just want to take an opportunity to give a shout out to those people. Those individuals were super encouraging. Also Jeff Van Dusen later on in the podcast. We just did a couple episodes ago. He had the adventure tech with the scavenger hunt box. He was too. So everyone was, for that matter. So I don't mean to suggest that other people weren't, but those people, in addition to you and my wife and my family, we're all super encouraging this journey. So just like to take a moment to thank all of them, and also take this moment to thank all of our guests. Again, we wouldn't have had a podcast if we didn't have people to interview, and we wouldn't have had a podcast if we didn't have people listening. So also wanted to thank all the guests out there again who've been diligent. I feel like we've had a kind of a core group, a critical mass that's followed us of 50 to 100 episode downloads every single episode. So that's been awesome to see that. And again, just can't thank them enough. And it's been such a cool journey. It's surreal to get to 100 episodes. It feels like it's been forever, but it also feels like it's gone by in a blink of an eye. But Jonathan, anything else top of mind for you before we sign off here for the last time?
Yeah, I should say I shouldn't forget the By Design guys. I thought the lifestyle brand that they've created was really really great, really exciting, and I follow them on Instagram. They're doing great things. So just in general, it's been great. I certainly wish there was opportunities to continue and move forward, but I don't trade the experience for anything. I think it was good for me to, again, keep my finger on the full social media, but also to stretch my legs in the interviewing and podcast space. And it's certainly something that I could see myself continuing in some form or fashion. Not entirely sure yet, but
for sure.
But no, it's been fun for sure.
Awesome. I think a good way to close this out is the question, kind of the focusing question I asked every guest to really find a topic for the episode. And that would be, if you had to speak to a room full of 100 other entrepreneurs or just millennial age professionals, what would you teach them? How would you encourage them? What lesson learned would you give to them? Anything like that?
I in terms of podcast, I think I sort of touched on it before, but find something unique and different, and make it yours. And that's not to like negate the things you said about the golden rule at all.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a podcast where someone does like the whole show. Each show is about a minute of a Star Wars scene.
Yeah.
Like, so you've got tons of opportunities for episodes if you're just doing a minute of a Star Wars scene.
Yeah.
I just use that as an example of something fun, unique, and different, and fills a need for guys who like Star Wars. So just if you're gonna do it, have fun with it. Do something people you care about, but something you think people will care about as well.
For sure. Yeah, I think I'd second that, and also add to take risk. I just think of the Kansas City Chiefs playoff game here recently, just this past weekend. Hopefully by the time this airs, that we'll be AFC champs again. But it was the most recent game against the Buffalo Bills where we beat them in overtime, and just probably the craziest game I've ever seen. I think my blood pressure was incredibly high. But I've just been seeing so much content out there about how Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes interacted, and how the last two plays in that 13-second period of regulation to get them to kick the tying field goal to go to overtime. They were just so in sync and knew each other's behavior. But I think the underlying point I'm trying to make is that Travis Kelce was talking to Mahomes and said, hey, on both plays to get them in just that 13-second period, is like, hey, I'm going to run this. So he took a risk, right? And it paid off. So I think that's just a cool concept. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but I think the common thread through all these is that people took a risk. They may have failed, they may have got uncomfortable, but they definitely learned from it and grew from it. So I think I would encourage people by taking a risk and stepping outside their comfort zone. But yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap this up. And Jonathan, you've been awesome, man. I can't wait to see you continue to grow in your career and see what you do next. But can't thank you enough. To our listeners, to our guests, thank you. It's been an awesome 100 episodes. And thank you for listening to the GenWhy Leaders Podcast. That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GenWhy leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the GenWhy Leaders Podcast.